Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Balabha Gopi Jana Balabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jasodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jamuna Tiravana Chadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivajagacharya Astatarasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnavrind Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gora Premanandi. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Well, devotees, we're back again to Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're reading from Canto 11, Chapter 8. This is Uddhava Gita section. And we're resuming with verse 31 through 33. This section is Pingala, the prostitute who is expressing her realizations about the temporariness of a mature world and the foolishness of anticipating happiness from that temporary, and her moving towards full shelter of the personality of Godhead. Text 31. I am such a fool that I have given up the service of that person who, being eternally situated within my heart, is actually most dear to me. That most dear one is the Lord of the universe, who is the bestower of real love and happiness and the source of all prosperity. Although he is in my heart, I have completely neglected him. Instead, I have ignorantly served insignificant men who can never satisfy my real desires and who have simply brought me unhappiness, fear, anxiety, lamentation, and illusion. BBT purport. Pingala laments that she chose to serve most sinful, useless men she falsely thought they would bring her happiness, and neglected to serve the actual Lord of the heart, Krishna. She could understand how foolishly she had struggled for money, not knowing that the Supreme Lord is always inclined toward prosperity to his sincere devotee. The prostitute was proud of her ability to please men, but she now laments that she did not try to please the Supreme Lord by loving service. The Supreme Lord is completely aloof from the transactions of the material world. Lord Krishna is the actual enjoyer of everyone and everything, but one must learn how to please the Lord by pure spiritual service. And continuing, this is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's purport. The material desires of the conditioned souls are aroused due to lack of God consciousness or due to lack of seeing the Supreme Lord as the only worshipable person. Paragraph. Aversion to the Lord's service. This is that indifference topic. Aversion to the Lord's service places the conditioned souls in an artificial condition of distress, fear, lamentation, and illusion, being under the control of the material nature. They cannot understand that the Supreme Lord is the true object of worship in all respects, and that he is always present by their side. The Supreme Lord is the actual enjoyer of all that is enjoyable, and he is situated in the hearts of all living entities as their well-wishing friend. Because it is the natural propensity for a conditioned soul to befriend another conditioned soul, they should together engage in the service of the non-dual Supreme Person. The Supreme Lord is eternal, and he is the master of those who award material wealth and other benedictions. He alone awards transcendental happiness because he is the one Supreme Person who is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss, who maintains all others subordinate persons. One who gives up his relationship with the Supreme Lord and indulges in temporary material enjoyment is certainly fool number one. And Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur's commentary. Giving up the eternal Lord situated within me, who accepts love, and gives wealth, foolishly I serve insignificant men who give dissatisfaction, sorrow, fear, worry, lamentation, and illusion. Paragraph. The Lord is in my heart, the enjoyer, Ramanam. Why do I not give love to him? He gives love. Why should he not give love to me? What is the use of other men who are full of sin? He gives wealth. Being pleased with my love, he will give the greatest wealth. Others are not capable of giving full satisfaction. Akamadam. In this way she thought of the Lord. Some authorities say that she thought in this way by the great mercy of Dattatreya, who happened to rest in her yard that night. Now, Jiva Goswami makes reference to this verse when commenting on Canto 10, the story of Shalva. Here's the story of Shalva verse, and then the part of the purport that makes reference to this verse. So this is 1078, 13 through 15. Having thus destroyed Shalva and his Saubha airship, along with the printing is blurred. Dantavakra. Yes, that's it, Dantavakra. And his younger brother, all of whom were invincible before any other opponent. The Lord was praised by demigods, human beings, and great sages, by Siddhas, Gandharvas, Vidyadharas, and Mahoragas, and also by Apsaras, Pitas, Yakshas, Kinnaras, and Charanas, as they sang his glories and showered him with flowers. The Supreme Lord entered his festively decorated capital city in the company of the most eminent Vrishnis. So that's the Bhagavatam verse and part of Jiva Goswami's purport. Reads, Krishna, however, after bestowing on Nandagopa and all the other inhabitants of Braja his own abode, which is free of all material faults, he traveled through the sky and returned to Dwarka as Devas chanted his praises. Niramayam means, quote, free from material faults and free of, again, having pain of separation. Sva Padam means the shelter of eternal pastimes in his form as Gopal. His role as a paramour, Jaram, is resolved by Shukadev. In order to praise spiritual discrimination brought about by her guru Dattatreya, Pingala thought of temporarily enjoying with Krishna, the husband, Ramanam, and that quotes this verse, text 31, giving up the eternal Lord situated within me, the Lord who accepts love and gives love and wealth. Foolishly I serve insignificant men who give dissatisfaction, sorrow, fear, worry, lamentation, and illusion. Since the temporary nature of the paramour condition has been thus shown and will be shown later, it is not the final goal. Therefore, the verse says that they attained him as Ramana, which was the human form of Brahman, which appeared to be the form of a paramour previously. Having stated the previous perception, his position as husband is prescribed. Having stated what was concluded, he then states what is the ideal situation, just as one says, quote, the Brahmana is a learned man, unquote. The state of being a paramour has been completed. It cannot be reversed. Or it is said that on attaining scriptures, one becomes knowledgeable of the truth. It is said, quote, he completes the sacrifice using yogurt, unquote. Ramana can be used like the word yogurt. That is, they attained him as a husband. Krishna, and as Brahman, does not attain a previous state as a paramour. This Brahman is the Brahman mentioned in Shruti. The impersonalists say Bhagavan is the product of illusion, and its final form, Paramam, is not revealed as Bhagavan Krishna. The word Mam, they say, also refers to Brahman. For them, Bhagavan is a dependent entity. If the word Ramanan were not mentioned, then the word would be seen as Jaram or Paramour. If the word Jaram were not mentioned, then the word Ramanam would be taken to mean Jaram. But to refute this idea, the Lord says, Bhagavad Gita 4.11, accordingly they surrender As they surrender, I respond to them. The Lord responds according to the worshipper's bhava. Now, I don't know what all this reference is about paramorship because the reference is not complete. But this is commentary to Krishna's activities in just outside Dwarka, killing Shalva and Dantavakra. Oh. Oh. So this is after killing Shalva and then killing Dantavakra, who was the younger brother of Shalva, trying to take revenge for the killing of Shalva. He entered into his capital city. Now, what's the capital city? One might take it as Dwarka. That's how I was reading it, but actually the reference is, he returned back to, after killing Dantavakra, where did he go? Braja. That's his home, that's the capital city. So anyway, the whole commentary is not here. Jiva Goswami's commentary, probably a good idea to go read it. Okay, so now here's Jiva Goswami's very short commentary on this verse, text 31, from chapter 8. He writes, by her previously described samskaras, or by an appearance of the Lord by the power of Dattatreya's mercy, the Lord existed within her. Santam Samipe. The Lord was the giver of a particular type of priti, rati pradam, and fulfilled all desires as with Kubja. So Jiva Goswami is of the opinion, or is writing, that Pingala, the story is being narrated by Dattatreya, but Pingala had her epiphany because of association with Dattatreya. That's it, the indication here. I'll read it again. By her previously described samskaras, or by an appearance of the Lord by the power of Dattatreya's mercy, the Lord existed within her. The Lord was the giver of a particular type of priti, and fulfilled all desires, as with Kubja, meaning she was a prostitute, Pingala, and she did a turnaround because of feeling the presence of the Lord within. So let's go back to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, this reference to Dattatreya. Some authorities say that she thought in this way, like the turnaround of being a prostitute to devotion to the Lord. Some authorities say that she thought in this way by the great mercy of Dattatreya, who happened to rest in her yard that night. Now, there's no elaboration on any of this, so please don't ask for elaboration on any of this, because it's curious. Text 32, 11.8.32. Pingala continues, oh, how I have uselessly tortured my own soul. I've sold my body to lusty, greedy men, who are themselves objects of pity. Thus, practicing the most abominable profession of a prostitute, I hoped to get money and sex pleasure. BBT purport: the art of prostitution is based on awakening the enjoying propensity in men. Apparently, this prostitute was so foolish that she maintained a romantic conception of her profession and was actually trying to enjoy loving affairs with her customers, not realizing that they were the lowest of men with the most abominable motives. Like the prostitute Pingala, one should understand that by giving up the devotional service of the Lord, one simply becomes a victim of the illusory energy and suffers greatly. Bhaktisiddhanta's purport: the art of arousing the spirit of enjoyment is called Sanketya Vritti. Sanketya Vritti. And it involves employing sensual gestures and movements. Employing this art is one of the sinful ways of earning one's livelihood. Only the most condemned and greedy sense enjoyers are so attracted by the illusory beauty of a woman that they will spend their hard-earned money in exchange for a few moments of her association. If, somehow or other, a conditioned soul revives his inclination for Krishna's service, he will come to understand that it was because of giving up the service of the Lord that he has been swallowed by the witches of material enjoyment and impersonal liberation. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary: oh, how I have uselessly tortured my own soul by the profession of despicable prostitution. I desired pleasure and wealth from pitiable, greedy, lusty men by selling my body. And final text for this morning is text 33, which reads: this material body is like a house in which I, the soul, am living. The bones forming my spine, ribs, arms, legs, are like the beams, cross beams, and pillars of this house, and the whole structure, which is full of stool and urine, is covered by skin, hair, and nails. The 9 doors leading into the body are constantly excreting foul substances. Besides me, what woman could be so foolish as to devote herself to this material body, thinking that she might find pleasure and love in this contraption? That's it. Hridayandamara's word, contraption. Not a normal Prabhupada word. Looking for the Sanskrit contraption. Can't see. Just says other. Purport, BBT purport. The 9 doors leading into and out of the body are 2 eyes, 2 nostrils, mouth, 2 ears, genital, and anus. Vangsha or spine also means bamboo. And indeed, the skeleton appears to resemble a bamboo construction, just as bamboo can be immediately burned to ashes or chopped into pieces. Similarly, the material body, which is constantly deteriorating, may at any moment be crushed into powder, cut into pieces, drowned, burned, suffocated, and so on. Eventually, the body must disintegrate, and therefore there is certainly no one as unfortunate as one who has dedicated himself heart and soul to this flimsy body which is filled with unpleasant elements. Bhaktisiddhanta's purport: the gross body of the conditioned soul is compared to a house, just as a house consists of many wooden beams that provide support to the structure. The physical body is an assembly of bones, flesh, hair, nails, and other component parts. This body excretes abominable substances as stool, urine, and perspiration. Therefore, it must be concluded that those who give up the service of Krishna just to accept the perishable and disgusting objects of this material world as desirable are certainly most unfortunate people. And we just have two remaining topics for this morning. This is Bhaktisiddhanta's paraphrasing or rewriting of a gloss of Vishwanath's commentary. Pingala thought, "Alas, this is most strange. I've accepted this disgusting body which is full of obnoxious substances as the object of my conjugal pleasure. This house, in the form of my body, has 9 gates. The spinal cord is the main bamboo pillar upon which the body is supported. The bones of the rib cage, as well as the hands and legs, are considered to be secondary beings giving support. What is more unfortunate than me to consider such a body as the source of love and pleasure?" And he just, in his actual commentary, he again brings attention. The spine, or vangsha, is the main beam, and the bones and the hands and the feet, vangsha, are the secondary beams. Vangsha and vangsha. Okay. Very different than Chaitanya Bhagavat. So, if you want to see the image, you have to get your handheld device out because we didn't have the projector ready. There's just a few from text 31. It's a field, like an agricultural field. Over on the left side is Krishna with a cowherd boy, with a cow. And over on the right is the prostitute that was enticing Haridas. So the commentary that's here, that commentary, this is her speaking, text 31. "I am such a fool that I've given up the service of that person who, being eternally situated within my heart, is actually most dear to me. That most dear one is the Lord of the universe, who is the bestower of real love and happiness, and the source of all prosperity. Although he is in my heart, I have completely neglected him." Signed, Pingala. And text 32. "Like the prostitute Pingala, one should understand that by giving up the devotional service of the Lord, one simply becomes a victim of the illusory energy and suffers greatly." So that's a nice image. The Lord is up there in the top part of the circular stairway, and one who turns away is greeted by cruel masters. The first one at the top of that turning point of the stairway, that the first two, they're pointing towards the Lord, hopefully heading that direction. And then there's the prostitute, or the male-female attraction, and then going down, lust, greed, anger, and the fiery, hellish regions. Lust, greed, anger, envy. There's more letters than envy, but it looks like. Okay. What did it say? Envy and ignorance. Makes sense. Okay. So it's that turning point towards or away from, and one who turns away from simply becomes a victim of the illusory energy and suffers greatly. Then another nice illustration, there's a house construction. This is the last of our illustrations. This material body is like a house in which I, the soul, am living. The bones form my spine, ribs, arms, and legs are like the beams, cross beams, and pillars of the house, and the whole structure, which is full of stool and urine, is covered by skin, hair, and nails. The 9 doors leading into this body are constantly excreting foul substances. Again, Pingala. So she gets a lot of attention in this chapter. I'll see if I can find any additional references to Dattatreya. Somehow, one message here is Vishwanath Chakravarti. Some say Dattatreya slept in her yard. It appears that Jiva Goswami indicates he instructed her, or at least by his influence, she started to feel the presence of the Lord in her heart. So that's the Sadhu Sangha principle. Because such sadhus carry that potency and intention. We're getting this picture, very simple. I mean, this section that Prema Tarangini had been reading from Shivaram Maharaj's book, it's really good. He has his way of writing that's very nice. But based on a commentary of Baladev Vidyabhusan on a verse from Bhagavad Gita, the living entity, the soul, we hear this all the time from Prabhupada, it makes complete sense. The soul has free will, just at whatever the qualities of the Supreme Lord, that he has unlimitedly. The soul has qualities that are the same, but very tiny. Our free will capacity is very tiny. And the free will, the perpetual question that's there, the living entity turning away from the Supreme Lord. Why? Or, what was the circumstance? We've been through this. I don't want to go through it again. But in principle, when the soul turns away, Bahir Mukha Jeev, when the soul turns away, or the covering of the soul is provided, and that means there's this Baladev's language is the indifference within the mind. So it's of the soul. The indifference is, rather than being attracted, like that nice picture, like being attracted to the Supreme Lord, if that attraction to the Supreme Lord slackens, if we turn our attention away, if there's indifference, at least. Indifference means neither here nor there, not like attracted to the material, but indifference. Nice philosophical point. Spiritual indifference. The default is material attraction. That's Maya's business. Illusory potency's business. Because how can you not be attracted? by illusion. One can be not attracted. One can become covered by illusion. That means attraction to the illusory. And, in different degrees of madness, of the whole position is irrational and becomes madness. And people suffer greatly. I'll read this. Like the prostitute Pingala, one should understand that by giving up the devotional service of the Lord, one simply becomes a victim of the illusory energy and suffers greatly. People don't like the suffering, but they like the so-called enjoyment. The so-called enjoyment is illusory enjoyment, and the consequence is suffering greatly. And it's a very popular program. Living entities in the material world are playing that program again and again and again in different ways, but the same program. And that the alternative for the human form of life is, put the pause button or delete that program and go for the spiritual program. And the spiritual program is hearing topics of Krishna and turning voluntarily, by free will, choosing to turn attention to Krishna. There's the distractions of the mind to do so because of conditioning, tendencies, and the lingering idea that maybe there is some happiness out there, etc. Just the conditioning of the illusory energy. It keeps us going. So that transition between the material to spiritual is where we are. And the difficulty is our forgetfulness and tendency for forgetfulness and all of the other concomitant factors that go with that. Misuse of free will. And even as we're trying to change the program, tendencies are there. And I like this idea. Indifference to the spiritual is an obstacle, a big one. Relationship with Krishna. We can speak about it in genuine terms, and then to sustain that genuine taking shelter of would only make sense where there's real love and where there's real good fortune, and whatever it is that's of a sort may be considered prosperity. That's Krishna's the source. Mind is really stubborn, isn't it? So, hearing these topics, this whole section, one more time, is knowledge and detachment section. Stepping back from that, the question of Uddhava, how can I know you? Because, unfortunately, I'm too much attached to the temporary. Because that too much attachment to the temporary, I can't know you. I can't be with you. So how to get on the other side of that too much attachment? So all of this is lessons in knowledge and detachment towards bhakti. So her speech here is very much bhakti centered, and there's remorse or regret for the misuse of free will, then the commitment and dedication to proper use of free will that's coming up. It's much nicer than all of this remorseful talk about her profession and her indulgences and, the yucky situation of material bodies. And it's a powerful section. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. Oh.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I heard several times from Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, and also Sivaram Swami Maharaj's book, Sankalpa Kaumudi. We know that senses are higher than sense objects, mind is higher than senses, and intelligence is higher than the mind, and soul is higher than the intelligence. Now, twice I heard that soul is covered by false ego. And I was just wondering how to understand that, because if soul is higher than intelligence and intelligence is higher than the mind, do I understand that sometimes the mind can influence the intelligence and intelligence can influence the soul?
Sure.
And
when coverings are provided, it's not just it's not a one-way street. This is like the example yesterday morning of the senses and the mind and intelligence. So there's an interplay between them. You change behaviors, it can influence your mind and intelligence. You change your mind and intelligence can influence behaviors. There's an interplay. Then there's the soul. So now the starting point of your question was the soul being covered by false ego. So where does that fit into your question? It's a misidentification with the covering. It's very subtle, and I am the covering.
So, is the mind saying that I am the covering, or the intelligence is supporting the mind saying that yes, you are the covering?
Well, it's not exactly cut and dry like that. No, false ego is misconception. And that false ego or misconception, the soul identifying with what I am not, it works its way down, including, the senses and then the mind and the intelligence. So it's pervade, because it's subtle, it pervades all the lower material coverings. The false ego is influencing all of them. So your question is, who's influencing whom?
Yeah. Like when we say soul is higher than the intelligence.
Well, what my answer is, it's the false ego is driving the whole thing. And as false ego, when the soul becomes covered by false ego, or all souls that are covered by false ego, rather than putting it in the context of time, souls covered by false ego then also receive the other parts of the subtle covering, mind and intelligence, or intelligence and mind. So false ego is, soon as material intelligence is there, false ego is there. As soon as material intelligence is there, material mind is there. So false ego permeates all of them. Your question is, who is influencing whom? And I'm saying false ego is influencing the whole shebang.
So false ego is a subtle
misconception of self. I abandon myself and accept a misunderstanding of self, the illusory conception of self.
So who is telling us that false ego is that I want to identify with false ego? Is the mind or the intelligence, or who is telling this false ego?
It's not someone is telling. The living entity, by misuse of free will, is awarded coverings, because in order to fulfill the conception that I'm the enjoyer, You have to have the illusory energy. In the first part of the illusory energy is the false ego layer or covering. And then the whole machine is there to fulfill that. It's resting upon the soul's misuse of free will. The soul's misuse of free will results in, you got to have false ego for that one. I'm the enjoyer. You're not the enjoyer. The energy is Krishna's energy. Well, I want to be the enjoyer. Okay, here's some false ego. And then the rest of the apparatus is there to fulfill that desire. It's resting on the living entity's misuse of free will.
So, if I understood correctly, I heard from Ban Maharaj who said there are two types of intelligence, two types of senses, two types of mind.
Material and spiritual.
Yeah, and he also said there are two types of senses.
Sure.
And and there are two types of egos also, false ego and the real ego.
Yeah.
And when I am influenced by the material senses, material mind and material intelligence, then I support the false ego.
No, it's the other way around. You turn away from Krishna and its darkness. You turn towards Krishna and its light. So the darkness, the first layer of darkness is the false ego layer, and then all the other ones, and not necessarily chronologically, but ontologically, the other ones are also there. So it's where you're turning your attention, and that's a free will choice.
I'm still not clear, Guru Maharaj.
Okay, we'll think about it some more.
Krishna Guru Maharaj. I might not have understood your discussion about the spiritual indifference, but when there is complacency in our spiritual practices,
When there's what?
Complacency in our spiritual practices, is that
Similar? It's another way of saying indifference. I was thinking about it just this morning. That's why, we're bringing it up. But so you want to know, over here is indifference, over here is complacency. Are they the same? How do they match up? That's your question.
Yes.
They're very similar. I don't know exactly how they match up. Complacency is, I'm okay, everything's okay. It's kind of like what indifference is. That's kind of like a neutral zone. Indifference is a neutral zone. And complacency is more specifically slackening towards something. It's similar. The consequence is quite the same. You lose your energy, it comes rushing in. You don't have to, as Prabhupada says, you don't have to invite Maya.
So after a certain stage in devotional practice, does this spiritual complacency kind of go away?
Well, it doesn't just like, it's not, you can say yes, but more specifically, there's a activated free will choice toward Krishna. Now, can an activated free will choice towards Krishna again slacken? Yes. When does it reach the stage where it doesn't slacken? I want that. That's the prema stage. Or as we've been reading, he'll say it again. Purity, a nice definition of purity, is where there is nothing that one holds as value other than priti or love. That's purity. So when we're at the stage of prema, we don't fall back. That's Bhakti Sandarbha's teaching. The living entity that comes to that stage will not come back. So is there a possibility to not have a complacency ever again? Yes. Until we reach the stage of prema, there's a possibility we can become, I'm feeling pretty good now. So it's all about me. It's not about, the object of love. When the object of love is everything, that's purity. Until there's purity, there's some mix of impurity, and there's potential of blackening, or complacency, or indifference, moving in that direction again.
Even in the stage of nishta.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Keep going. It's not like, oh no. When do I get out of jail? The jail is our own creation. It's our wish. It's our free will wish. So when you stop wishing like that, when will that happen? When you have completely Krishna's everything. It doesn't mean like dismiss people and stuff. Just those things are seen in relation to Krishna only. And one lives a happy life, a full life. Whatever, even in this world.
Thank you, Guru.
Just to add, because it's nice, this morning I was listening to Prabhupada giving a lecture in Los Angeles from Canto 1, Chapter 3. Canto 1, Chapter 3. That's the list of incarnations. And he was speaking on the Ete Changsa Kalapungsa in Los Angeles. And the end of the lecture was, where there's material where we see things separate from Krishna, but there's actually nothing separate from Krishna. And when one lives one's life that way, that's the spiritual world. And he said it like 4 times. This temple is where everything is for Krishna, and so it's not Los Angeles. This temple is not in Los Angeles. This is Vaikuntha. Now, the potential is there by constant remembrance. And where does constant remembrance arise from? When you're attached to the object. You think of your children because you're attached to your children. Your mother should need to be attached to their children. But in terms of their being parts and parcels of Krishna, that's the Krishna conscious position. So one doesn't give up motherhood. One sees all things in relation to Krishna. That's the spiritual world. That's it. Be attached to Krishna. And then all of the other parts of this world have their natural place. And to get there, it's a journey. But that's where there isn't complacency or indifference anymore. Otherwise, it's unsteady, up and down. And even the up and down, the steady is described in different places, in where nashta prayeshu abhadreshu. Prayeshu means almost to nil. Almost to nil. What about nil? So the nishtha stage is almost, but still there's something, there's residual something. But bhakti is strong enough, it doesn't act. The residual, that the impure is overpowered by the pure. But still it's there, and if one slackens, or becomes complacent, or becomes indifferent, then the impure rises again. So keep going even beyond the nishtha stage. Steady. Keep the trajectory moving. To what stage? When is it not going to set in again? at the prema stage. We're passing through the rough zone in Arjuna Vritti to get to the Nishtha stage because of long-standing habits and who knows how many lifetimes of being, trying to be an enjoyer of Krishna's property. Long-standing tendency. Online or something?
Online. I think I just had a comment.
Okay.
I guess I'm just appreciating the value of, the culture to really grow, because this is just the conditioning and all this is so deep rooted.
Yeah.
So, like I remember in chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, in the first verse, Prabhupada writes, the necessity of developing this relationship, eternal relationship, and then he says that the state heads should therefore impart education and culture and then devotion. I always, I like that sentence because, we can give all the education, but culture is so powerful because the environment is really, like, it overpowers us. It's more powerful than our willpower, really. And so kind of appreciating also the importance of the Varnashram, set up in a way, and the culture we create. And there's a sentence here in the 31st purport, because it's the natural propensity for a conditioned soul to befriend another conditioned soul. They should together engage in the service of the non-dual supreme. Anyway, it's just different thoughts, but my thoughts are just going to how important it is to create that culture, because then we thrive and there's these natural friendships and so on. As opposed to sometimes I feel like in our ISKCON traditionally, it's always been projects over people and so on.
It's always what?
Been projects over people. The culture. It's changing. But anyway, just random thoughts.
Well, I two comments. One comment, and just in this last part, Prabhupada wanted both. Book distribution and his efforts, because I've been hearing now for the fourth time this description of the Chaitanya Charitamrita marathon, the book publication 2-month marathon. The Prabhupada had, and the building of the Juhu temple and the building of the Vrindavan temple, Prabhupada pushed.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Yeah, Prabhupada definitely wanted both, but I think I'm just kind of talking about what happens in real life sometimes,
Sure.
Yeah.
But so the refinement is how to do both, because you go too much on this side or too much on that side, and you're missing the opportunity to give Krishna consciousness and receive Krishna consciousness, or receive Krishna consciousness and give Krishna consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Too much on this side, too much on that side. And now I forget what the other point was. Yeah, the other point. The word that you're pointing to is culture, and from these topics, several persons have been expressing that Lord Chaitanya is teaching not only, the esoteric love of God, but the relationship aspect of those who are situated or moving towards the esoteric aspect of love of God and higher sentiments and so forth. They have a sense of relationships and community amongst the Vaishnavas, that's another way of saying what culture is. Refinement of human interaction. That's part and parcel of that finer sentiment of ecstatic devotion to Krishna.
Yeah.
We say it negatively. If we don't cultivate the proper refinement of human interaction and the sense of community amongst the Vaishnavas, then the higher sentiments aren't going to rise. Or as higher sentiments rise, there will be refinement, and both are needed.
Yeah.
One insists the other. And that's one of the beautiful contributions of Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, or Chaitanya Charitamrita, or Chaitanya Bhagavat, is how the devotees interact with each other in a very refined, cultured, respectful way. Just like we read last night, even when Lord Chaitanya was like neglecting and severely criticizing Mukunda, the devotees spoke up on behalf of Mukunda, very, respectfully and, appropriately. And so many other examples. Without disrespect to Lord Chaitanya, they were very concerned about the well-being of this one, that one, and the other one. The sense of community, sense of cultured way of helping another person who's maybe in a difficult situation to come out of a difficult situation with spiritual acumen. That's another way of saying culture.
The first question from Sucharita. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, it is said in Bhagavad Gita that whatever little devotional service one does, they continue from there in the next birth. But I am feeling I'm not able to maintain same level or higher devotional service in this birth itself. I'm wondering, why is it so?
Ask Sashi Kumar, he has the answer. It's the mind. If the mind is influencing in that way because of slackening. So, the unsteady bhakti is standard for the stage of bhakti that you're in, up and down and up and down, the sine curve up and down. It's standard. So why does it go down? And then sometimes it may go up again, or maybe down for a long time and then sometimes comes up again. It's unsteady. And that's the influence of the mind. It's not, what's driving that is our conditioning, but also the soul's complacency, and that then manifests itself in the mind. And so you're participating in your cooking or your chanting or your reading as it's up and down, the unsteady bhakti stage. But it doesn't nullify the scriptural statement. Any spiritual progress you've made is a permanent asset because it's spiritual. And the unsteadiness that you're expressing and experiencing is part of the gradual elevation or restoring the soul to your original Krishna consciousness. Not lost. It's a permanent asset. Keep going.
Next question is from Govinda Mohini. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, in the commentary it was said, Lord gives prosperity to his sincere devotees. We also hear that if Krishna is being very merciful, then he takes away everything. He takes away everything, so you take complete shelter of him. How to understand these two?
That's real prosperity. Real prosperity is not the material. Real prosperity is the spiritual. Just like Sanchi Kumar's question, there's two everythings. It's real prosperity is the real prosperity. And after Krishna takes away, so that one takes deeper shelter, it's not that the material prosperity is vacant permanently. But when Krishna gives something, it's not, one doesn't become infatuated with it and fall over head over heels. Oh, now this is really what I wanted. Because that shelter is gone. And then when then material prosperity comes, it's seen as in a spiritual way. Material prosperity meaning assets and abundance and so forth.
This is from Krishna Mohini Dasi from Singapore. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, as you showed in one of the slides about Pingala, it was mentioned that by giving up devotional service to the Lord, one becomes a victim of the illusory energy and suffers. If you so desire, please tell, how can we be sure that we are always trying to do devotional service towards the Lord, because staying in this material world, we are consciously or unconsciously becoming victims of illusory energy and suffer?
How can we tell? Put your hand in your bead bag, start chanting and see what happens. That's how you can tell. And, so we're in the unsteady position and sometimes. Sometimes it's a hill, sometimes it's a valley. So over a period of time, you can tell, are you continuing to be headed toward Krishna by is your, what is your intention? To the same this sankalpa. What is your intention? Consistently moving in that direction, even if there's lapses. If you restore the intention and invest again, that's how you can tell. And in between, we're distracted. Sometimes more attracted, sometimes distracted. Sometimes more distracted than attracted. Sometimes more attracted than distracted. So you continue to practice. Your question is how you can tell, how distracted you are, or how intent you are, and in the purpose or the mission of human life.
Next question is from Girivaradhari Prabhu. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please bless us with enlightenment to understand the difference between, I don't know this word, Swayambhupasakas and people who are serving Paramatma in oneself. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know the Sanskrit term either, so can't go into the next.
Alicia Israni. Maharaj, thank you for your amazing presentations. Love the fact that you bring points from different commentaries, Maharaj. After 10 to 15 years in Krishna consciousness, we hit a plateau. How do we relentlessly continue progressing?
Same question. It's you renew and articulate your heart's intention. And if you don't do that, the plateau will start to slope down again. So you hit the refresh button on what the mission of your life is. And do that in the association of sadhus and in the association of scripture. And, make it genuine, not something that it's just a textbook answer. Make it something that's your heart, and renew that from time to time. And then it's when the plateau situation is there, it takes further effort and further mercy to go further beyond the plateau.
From Amara, Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, in practical life, when we take up something, how can we discriminate if it is really Krishna's service that our intelligence is suggesting, or it is an endeavor to fulfill some subtle self-centered desire?
Well, Guru Sadhu Shastra is one, and second is it's a safe assumption there's something of a mix. So how much of a mix? Is it something subtle, selfish? And how much of it is for the purpose of Krishna? Guru Sadhu Shastra.
Next from Sundarananda. Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, could you please share about ontological, in quotes, concept and its relevance for me as a practicing devotee?
Ontological, what's the other word?
Ontological concept. He just wants to understand.
Okay, what does ontological mean?
Yeah.
Ontology in a dictionary meaning is something like this, that the science of being, or what is, to understand what is. A Sanskrit word might be understanding tattva, truth, as it is. So I often use this word ontology. Well, Bhaktisiddhanta used the word. The Bhagavad is ontology and morphology. So what is the science of Bhagavan? It's Bhagavat ontology, Bhagavat tattva. And it's not, a contrast, at least how I use the word, is not necessarily chronology, that first there's this, and then there's that, and then there's that. That's the context, as far as I can recall, in response to Sachi Kumar's question. The living entity fundamentally has attention towards Krishna or not, and that's an ontological statement, a reality. Living entity is turned towards Krishna or not turned towards Krishna. Now it can vacillate back and forth, through a period of time, but directed towards Krishna, that's an ontological. Or we're part of Krishna. It's not you become part of Krishna or you become no longer part of Krishna. Just we're part of Krishna. It's an ontological statement. It's a science of what is, the science of being. I don't know if that answers, satisfies the question that you're asking.
And the other part of his question was, what's its relevance for me as a practicing devotee?
Well, you know who you are. That's its relevance.
Sucharita says, it's so hope-giving. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj. And Girivaradari Prabhu is explaining this word, Swayamupasaka. Swayamupasaka. I've never heard that.
Okay.
But he's saying that it means that those who worship themselves. Sounds like Ahangropasana.
Oh, yeah, sounds like.
So his question is, what's the difference between that and those who worship the Paramatma within their heart?
Well, those who are foolish can worship the Paramatma in the heart and think that's me. There are some persons who do like that. And then there are others that don't. They understand he's the Lord and I'm the witness of the Lord and I'm under his direction. So it's a world of difference. Okay. That's it.
Sundarananda is happy.
Huh?
Sundarananda is thanking you. So he's happy with the answer.
Okay. Yeah, he did.